Hey there, I hope you're having a good day. If you're new to D&D or curious about it, I hope this video can be some help for you. So recently I went to a coffee shop nearby and somebody asked me, how do I get into D&D? I answered them talking about you got to find a good group to hang out with, just like any games night, and people you want to see again and again, since D&D can be so repeatable of an experience. They then asked me a few specific questions that I thought were really important, and I really wanted to share with you because you might be worrying or wondering about the same thing when just starting. Or maybe your own friends are wondering the same thing, and this might help you articulate what you want to articulate. I have them written down here. How do you win? How long does it take? When does it end? And do they have to buy anything to play the game? So let's go over the few things that I mentioned. I mentioned that there were a couple ways to win at D&D, since there's technically no true way of winning in the classical sense. Instead of saying when you kill the monster, you win, I said when you survive a combat against a monster, you win. So that can mean running away, it can mean defeating it. Because the game is more focused around sharing ideas with each other around the table, I would say a way to win at D&D is to not just do what the character sheet says, is to build off the character sheet, expand off of that, and share your ideas at the table. And you'll get more creative the more you test and practice this skill and muscle of sharing ideas with your friends. And in the same part, when your friends are sharing ideas with you, you essentially say yes and. Yes, your idea. And this idea. What would stop you from sharing your ideas? You'd be embarrassed, shy. You don't think other people will like your ideas. That happens because people have said no to you in the past. People have shut you down because they don't think your opinion or your idea is worth anything or good enough. We should be making our friend groups way more valuable than our work groups or any other place in the world. We should be saying yes to our friends' ideas. If that means we have to be more flexible and patient in how we respond to their ideas, implement them creatively into the game, so be it. That's the value. That's how you win at D&D. And as much as you don't want anyone to say no to your idea, you should reduce how much you say no to others. Thirdly, you win when you beat the big boss. Just like any good video game or at the end of a movie when the big boss is defeated, we kind of entered a point where we're wrapping up a story. Our character's story don't fizzle out because we run out of time or move away and we can't invest into some way to keep playing the game. When you start a story, you win by finishing the story. Second, how long does D&D take? Well, big answer, it can take around 1 to 10 hours every game. That is a massive range and has compounding, overwhelming reasons to not start playing. But here's where the fun lies. You can play whenever you want. You can play a couple times a week with very short sessions, maybe 30, 60 minutes. Or you can play once a month with a little bit longer time since you don't get to play that often. Maybe you play once a year and it's a trip that everyone's saves up for and goes to a cabin by a lake or up on a mountain, and they isolate themselves for 2 days and just play Dungeons and Dragons for the weekend on an epic adventure. It's scalable, and how you get there depends on your table and what you guys want to play. And that all comes from setting up a session 0. A session 0 is a pregame where you all sit down at the table and roll your characters, set expectations of things that you're not comfortable with, things that you're absolutely interested in, and you set compromises like real adults on finding the right game for this table where everyone is going to have fun. And it's also an important time to establish the schedule. What is the realistic schedule? How often can we play? Is it easy to play together once a month, but Every week, the Dungeon Master can check in, ask some basic roles from everybody over Discord or text, and then at the beginning of the game, we see what everyone's roles were while we were all away from the table, and that sets up how things are starting, just kind of like a dramatic opening of a movie. There's a lot of ways to play Dungeons and Dragons, and just because some games are short, some games are really long, you shouldn't be intimidated by trying to play. When does the game end? You can reach your desired level. You can retire your character. Your character can die. You could finish the story. The beauty of finishing a game and wrapping up a story lies in not like how writing does, it's more past tense. The beauty of D&D is to finish it, to wrap it up, because that's how we tell the story. In hindsight, look at the story we made together around the table. Not the story that we played like a video game and the adventure was so determined ahead of time. Though there are adventures like that, and those are just as fun. But the true magic of Dungeons and Dragons is playing an adventure that you don't know where it's going. You don't know how long you're going to be there. And when it's all over and everyone has a satisfying conclusion, you can look back at a unique story that you and your friends had together. That's the magic. If you're still interested in Dungeons and Dragons, let's talk about a couple important details for you to consider when going into playing D&D. First, there's a type of player at the table that's called the Dungeon Master. Their job is basically, they're the DJ of the party. They're setting the playlist, they're transitioning between the songs, you're dancing. Their job is to create and run challenges and situations for you to creatively solve. The Dungeon Master sets those challenges. They play all the non-player characters. They play all the monsters, all the villains. They describe the towns and the dungeons and the places you visit. They also adjudicate rules, such as rules that no one knows. And they just say, like, this is the rule we're going to go with. And later we might look it up or not. Let's not look up the rule. Let's just make the call here and move forward with that. Speed up the game. But if you're not the Dungeon Master, what's your responsibility? What's your reason for being there? You play a character. You play a character on an adventure. You're typically a hero or on the journey of becoming a hero. Making a character is somewhat of a process, but I'll broad stroke go over it real quick. You choose a class, which is an archetype of fantasy, whether you're the barbarian, the fighter, the wizard, choices that you can make that define the abilities that you can do in the game. Then you also pick a fantasy creature to play, a dwarf, an elf, a gnome, a hobbit, or maybe you just want to be a human in a fantasy world. That's totally acceptable. You then roll dice to create your stats, the number value of how good you are or not good you are at doing certain activities or in response to your creative ideas. You pick what your character's skills are depending on what you were prior to adventuring. A soldier, a cobbler, whatever your trade was. On top of that, you can also choose where you're from. Are you from the mountains, a farm? These are all things that can add details to your character, so it's up to you. Do you swing a sword? Do you punch with a fist? Do you cast spells? Or a little bit of all of the above? Now, I keep mentioning dice. There are different types of dice that you need for the game. I'm not going to go over those, but what's really important is why you use the dice. You use the dice when you have a creative idea and you want to act on that idea. The job of the dice is to add uncertainty to your choice. The point of the game is to gamble our ideas. If you want to make an attack with a sword, you roll an attack. Does your target dodge or block the attack? Do you want to recall important lore? Make an intelligence check. Can you remember what this detail is? You want to charm the guard to get out of trouble? Well, roll a charisma check. And then finally they asked me, what do I need to buy? It's a tricky question because the easy answer is just go buy the books and read these tomes of rules that you may or may not use. If you want to be a dungeon master, I recommend paper and a pen or pencil or an iPad or a tablet. Make it easier. And just go get a starter kit. Starter kit usually comes with some basic rules, a single set of dice, some pre-made characters, and an adventure for you to learn how to run. If you want to go the extra mile, you can watch some of the Dungeon Master advice videos I have floating around on the internet, or you can watch other people play D&D. Like on this channel, we have plenty of games where we run D&D and other tabletop games, and you can get a really good expectation set on the core concept of playing these games. Your miles may vary. If you just want to be a player, pencil, paper, if you have them, dice, and just show up and share your ideas. Make the time that you're spending with people on game night a great one. And maybe you can watch some of my other videos too, because they can be helpful, you know, maybe. They'll definitely be helpful to me. All right, I hope this video excites you and sets the right expectations for starting to play Dungeons & Dragons. When I started playing Dungeons & Dragons, I was super excited. I didn't know what my I had no expectations other than like, we play a fantasy character and we make choices and roll dice. That's all I knew when I got in. And back then, D&D Beyond didn't exist. So we had to have a pencil and paper. We had to erase our stats and type them into the calculator and make sure we did the math right. And that was all fun. The tools that cost money don't make the game more fun. They just make things easier, but they can also easily distract the intention of the game, which is not to just roll well, it's to share ideas. I have a few more videos about players that I'm going to be releasing on this channel, so keep an eye out for that by hitting the subscribe button and the like button. And if you want to help this channel grow, go ahead and give me advantage by signing up on Patreon and hanging out in our Discord. All right, you have a great time. I hope you have fun. I'll see you next time.
Listening to 102.3. Where we playeth nothing but chance, and more chance. This are not thine elder matriarchs,